After seeing this thing for about 3 months and hearing from a lot of you guys asking if I was eventually going to cover it, I went ahead and purchased this DONOW lever gym, which is the cheapest lever gym I've ever seen on Amazon. Also, I'd say one of the cheapest all-in-one resistance training machines I've seen on Amazon when you include free shipping and also the current climate we're in right now where a lot of prices are kind of fluctuating, rising up and down. If you guys are new to the channel, I'll link a bunch of videos down below to give you guys more of a backstory, but I've covered the GMWD, which was the reigning cheap champ of lever gyms. That was a very popular product that is no longer in production. I'm not exactly sure why that is the case. I paid for that one as well. Also picked up the PowerTech, did a bunch of comparisons between the PowerTech and that cheap lever gym. I will do some loose comparisons, do all those things in consideration with this new DONOW lever gym and talk about how this thing kind of matches up. And hopefully you guys realize this. The reason you don't see a whole lot of Amazon-based reviews, especially with garage gym review type content, is because there's not a whole lot of incentive on the reviewer's end to really kind of promote this stuff out to you. So I'm really doing this out of genuine interest. Of course, I want to help you guys, but if you want to help me out, please give this video a like, share, subscribe. If you want to check this thing out, there'll be a affiliate link down below. Even with the competitor PowerTech, which is also an affiliate link, but I'll be totally unbiased and unfiltered with that comparison as well. They are having their sale going on right now, which is why I thought this video might be relevant in this current time. All right, talking about first impressions, unboxing, and assembly. This lever gym came in one box, pretty condensed, fairly lightweight for what it is, and I'll get to that. I'll just say it right now. You know, the parts are definitely on the lighter end compared to the other lever gyms I've looked at and reviewed. I was happy to see it was only in one box because previous experience putting together the other lever gyms, the GMWD and the PowerTech, was a very cumbersome process. You'd think it'd be fairly easy, but it was not. That took a lot of time. This, however, only took me about an hour and a half, much more of a simpler build. Being as cheap as it is, I wasn't having high expectations as far as how this thing would feel, but it's not too bad. We'll get to the weight capacity here in a second, but it is much lighter in weight. Not by a whole lot, but definitely lighter in weight compared to other things. The GMWD being the heaviest, PowerTech being also fairly light and actually maybe even smaller than this. This being a little bit lighter in just the frame and makeup. You can tell picking these things up and handling it that it is on the cheaper side of things and budget side of things. They don't give you much, but they at least give you something. I think they give you about 4 of these clips. You got this very simplistic, very light curl bar or press down handle. Got these ankle attachments. They give you 2 sets of chains, bunch of these spin lock clips there. A kind of moderately sized lat pull down. I do like that it does have this little foam on top, a little bit thicker in dimension. I don't know if you want to count this as really an accessory, that you actually need this because this thing likes to dig into your back, but we'll get to this. Very cheap foam. It is better than nothing. You're going to want something there. All right, now just going over some of the major important specs with this DONOW lever gym. It is 60 inches in length by 52 inches in width, and it is 84 inches in height. This is somewhat similar to the GMWD dimensions, which is bigger than the PowerTech. Definitely lighter material, but they say it's commercial grade steel with 2 millimeter thick tubes for enhanced durability. Where it counts for a lot of people here, and I'll get to this as far as practicality is concerned, but leverage arms on each side can hold up to 150 pounds. So you're talking about maybe like 3 45-pound plates on each side. The pulleys in the back can hold 100 pounds per side. That's a 2-to-1 ratio. Weight storage posts can hold about 150 pounds per side. And then like many machines nowadays, these weight loaders or sleeves can be taken off if you want to use standard plates. Otherwise, you can have them set on here like I do right now for the Olympic size plates. All right, now getting up close to the machine, give you guys some important things to highlight. I'll keep repeating this, but these loader arms are meant for 150 pounds, which I think, I'll get to this later, I think was functionally fine. So that's like 3 plates and maybe a 3 45-pound plates and a 25 if you want to push it. That puts it at 160. If you have bumper plates, that's going to take up a lot more real estate. It's one of the downsides inherently always of bumper plates. The loader pins or the loader weight stacks can hold the same thing. The max weight was 150. You got it at 160 here. I wanted to show you guys you got bumper plates. Again, it takes up a lot of space. For sure with something like this, and with something like the arms, I'd say most equipment, you don't want to leave the weight on the lever arms, something like this, so I definitely would take these off. You'd see over time as far as how much this would actually maybe warp the bar if you have more weights on the bar, but we'll see that later. I already mentioned this, but just to show you maybe some welds and stuff like that. Actually, one thing to note on the other lever gyms, and you can check out the PowerTech versus GMWD, but one of the issues I already had was this little crease here on these PowerTechs, these lever gyms, is that if you move this thing back and forth, this thing like to have a little bit of movement and flex. This actually does not have that. It sits nice and good right there in the crease between these 2 components. Simple cable system. This thing runs pretty smooth. I'll go over that more when we get to functionality towards the end here. Good distance. This thing is not rocking like the PowerTech, and also bonus here too is the PowerTech, unlike the PowerTech, You have to upgrade for this, which I think is a big flaw in the PowerTech. It's kind of flimsy and likes to rock a little bit. Bear in mind, guys, I have more of an incentive to push the PowerTech as far as like affiliates and whatever, stuff like that. So I know there's like a cult following with these things, unfortunately, which I don't understand that, have a tribalism with material goods, but I digress here. There are definitely shortcomings with this machine, no question. One being, again, yeah, these arms are still light. They're actually a pound lighter than the PowerTech, but these are longer than the PowerTech, and that's a good and bad thing. I would say it's more of a good thing because it makes things a little harder because the distance is longer. Downside, I'll get to this later, is you can't reach and hit these pins. These pins are very light and metal. I will say that too. As with everything, very thin metal. You guys can see kind of the weld job here. Downside though, and a pro for sure for the PowerTech, GMWD had a decent amount of holes. This one has much less holes compared to other gyms I've discussed. PowerTech has a lot of different holes to fine tune the various settings, so not a whole lot of selection points there, so it kind of depends on your own personal needs, dimensions, and also maybe the bench that you guys are using. Height is somewhat decent. I believe it's comparable to the other lever gyms. Down here, for sure a weak spot, but functionally it's not a gigantic deal, I would say. You got these little mini foot pads down there. This little weight bar or squat bar, more specifically, you are going to want something on here because this thing does like to dig into your back, and this isn't really that good. And sometimes I found if this bar likes to go this way, you really feel it. So I just made sure the soft spot was really on me there. Decent padding here. I think this is good. I like it's actually a thicker, bigger grip, I think, than the PowerTech was. This is just a simple screw to tighten it and to take it off. You just unscrew that, obviously, and this is kind of bolted on. I did find after about one session, this thing likes to come loose, so I would just check this periodically. Now, aside from build and longevity, which of course is very important, we're gonna talk about performance and how this thing feels and compares to the other lever gyms I've discussed and explored so far. One thing to note that I think it is good, the former thing I just mentioned, the Amazon reviews right now are, as of right now, pretty positive. So I think if something were to break, at least in the immediate term, we're not seeing it. This thing has been on Amazon for some time, which is a good sign. That's one of the reasons I didn't pull the trigger. I was kind of waiting to see what people were saying, because when I first saw this price tag, I was kind of apprehensive. I thought, there's no way this thing can be that substantial. And again, there is a weight limit to this that's a little bit lower than the PowerTech and the old GMWDs. But as of right now, this thing has been fairly good as far as how it's holding up. And if anything does happen, of course, we'll pin a comment down below, let you guys know about that. Now, putting this thing through its paces and comparing what the experience was using the PowerTech and old lever gyms, it pretty much feels like the same experience. There are some quality of life sacrifices, but there are some pros that even this thing with such a lower price tag actually beats out the much more expensive lever gym, maybe even some of the higher end lever gyms as well. First thing I didn't get to a little more specifically was just the cable. So notice right here, you have a lot of travel distance. The PowerTech would stop right here and you would need some extension or change that are necessary to even do something like a full tricep extension. So this cable can travel a decent amount. You are limited on the back end with 100 pounds on each side, which is roughly in about 245s on each side. Being a 2-to-1 ratio, it's not ideal for heavy, say, back pulling, lat pull downs, and rowing. But for the most part, it did feel good enough. If you're doing things like bicep curls, tricep press downs this many times, a top and bottom cable is really pretty much all you need. And for those exercises, I thought it worked out pretty well. Felt very smooth. One thing to note that I did not show you that is a flaw compared to this and the other stuff that's out there, there is no brace point here for your knees, say for lat pull downs and things of the like there. Now, talking about the lever arms and how those felt, again, pretty much felt very comparable to the past lever arm stuff that I was doing. Felt smooth enough. You can tighten these down more, so they're not as kind of flexible and have so much movement. In fact, I probably should tighten these down a little bit more. I did notice, and maybe it's just the PowerTech dimensions, but PowerTech, I've said before, it could be the pins, I'm not exactly sure. It has much more of this lateral wobble that you noticed more in the PowerTech. This feels more solid and connected, very similar to the GMWD and how that felt. The arms are lighter. They appear for sure a little bit more flimsy. Probably the last time I'll say this, maybe. These hold 150 pounds on each side. I do think for most people, myself included, even if you look back at past videos, I would never really go above 3 plates. If I'm doing something like max lifting or heavy lifting, I probably would just do free weights, adjustable dumbbells, something of that nature. Yes, you can kind of train to failure with somewhat safety, and I did push the limits. You guys are seeing me do things like, I think there's some back squats. I put 4 plates on here. I'll talk about the issue with the distance though in a second, but If it were me, I wouldn't recommend this. Would I put 4 plates on and do a couple of reps and do some things? I would, but my point is, for the vast majority of stuff that I've used lever gym for, I think I'm fairly strong, but how I just use these things, I'm not really loading up super heavy weight on here. Taking off this straight bar back pad type thing, very thin, very flimsy material. I wouldn't do anything super crazy on this regardless, but as of right now, it is holding up. A good thing with this one that was on the GMWD and not on the PowerTech is that you can put this pretty high and do something like well, one, just to get out of the way. That was a downside. The PowerTech stops about right here. Here I can get this not only out of the way and get clearance, but I could do things like a pull-up, and it feels fairly solid to me. You can lower this down. With all these lever gyms, you could do things like dips. And if I didn't already say, and if it wasn't too obvious already by looking at it, you can take this pin out and use the arms interchangeably. Something you can't do on this one, or you kind of can, you just kind of get yourself in a weird position, but you can't say go on for a squat and then go ahead, unrack it and rack it here. I could reach if I'm holding this, but it's just not the most comfortable thing. So you kind of have to set that position, very similar to the GMWD and how that was set up. Now, something that could be a game breaker or maybe not that big of a deal, it might make your life a little more simpler depending how you look at it. Since you do not have as many holes, you can fine tune the setting for certain things. So the biggest thing I noticed when I was doing those squats, getting to a certain setting, I think a notch below, I still wanted to get lower. So I had to put it even to a further notch. And for some exercises, I threw on a weight belt just because my back felt a little kind of compromised, kind of contorting myself in there. I have pretty good mobility and get pretty deep into my squats. So for me, it worked out fine. And I actually do love how these lever gyms just feel in general for squatting. I kind of forgot what that felt like, but they have a certain kind of tension that just gives off right where I like it. I always try and emphasize my glutes, work my glutes as much as I can, and great exercise to work the glutes. So I actually do love lever gym squatting just in general, but for some people that might be kind of hard getting that ideal distance for you. The next exercise that might be an issue is fine tuning the bench press. For me, it works out good. And I'll show you the incline in a second. But for me, if I'm going to do something like a flat bench, and this is the Super Bench Pro by Ironmaster, my favorite bench here, I can get underneath this. I just have to kind of dig under and get a nice little kind of initial pre-stretch down here. But for the most part, this feels perfect for me. So not only do your dimensions and personal preferences make a difference, but I think also the bench you're working with also might make or break some things. Stuff gets a little bit more tricky if I want to do things like incline press, which does work out. I just got to, I'm only really good for a higher incline, but I think it does feel pretty good. I think it's something like that. And so I can still get into it here. And this is a nice solid incline. Otherwise though, I think it'd be good in general for things like shoulders, back exercises, bent over rows. Felt good, and all the cable stuff felt good. All right, in summary, I gotta say this legitimately surprised me. When I first saw this come on the radar on Amazon, I thought there's no way this thing can be that price and perform and function as well as it is. Of course, there are shortcomings with the weight capacity specifically, but as I already addressed and how I use lever gyms, I really am not gonna go probably beyond 3 plates for most things. I just, for the way I kind of like the tension, the way it gives off for various exercises, especially again that this longer lever arm stuff feels a little bit harder than when I compared it to a PowerTech, which has a shorter lever arm. I think for the vast majority of people looking especially for a all-in-one kind of machine, there are very few things that I can really think off the top of my head that kind of beat this. There are things, of course, I like the Total Gym and things like that, but if you're looking for a weight machine, especially has a cable top and bottom for this price tag, there's nothing really like it. I wouldn't be surprised if this is not around much longer for some reason or other. I think I have an idea of why the GMW is taken off, but I don't really know exactly. Time will tell at the end of the day how long this thing holds up. I was not planning to keep this thing because I thought, I have other things coming in. I got the more expensive new Quantum Free Trainer, which I wouldn't put in the same ballpark. It's a different machine, although you might say it's lever gym. And so I do cover expensive things. I also cover very cheap things for a number of people and budgets and stuff like that. But I actually might be taking this and putting it in my basement because I don't have room in here for it, but or I might just give it away because I don't necessarily have a use for it. But I do really like this. If you just gave me this or a PowerTech, and there are pros and cons of each, but if you even gave me this thing, I would be totally fine with it and I could make great use out of it. I could say a lot more about it. I will just cut it here though. If you guys have any questions, comments, feedback, let me know. If you guys like honest reviews like this and stuff that is honestly kind of cheap. I'm always wondering if it's worth me even doing this sometimes, because there isn't a whole lot of payoff, to be totally honest with you guys. But I just think it's interesting. I really want to know what this thing does, so I wanted to showcase it for you. Any questions, comments, feedback, let me know, and I'll see you guys on the next one.